This is an old Toshiba satellite from 2009, and in today's video we are going to figure out if this old dust collector can still be of service today, but as a network attached storage slash server. Now just a quick disclaimer, this is more of an experimental video where I try to see if it's possible to repurpose an old laptop for a duty as a NAS. I don't necessarily recommend anyone going out on eBay to buy a random old laptop, but rather use a laptop that you might have sitting in your closet right now that is currently collecting dust. For me, I actually did buy this laptop on eBay for about $60, which is a bit too costly for a 14-year-old laptop. However, like I said, this is more of an experiment and I didn't have an old laptop lying around. Also, this specific laptop does bring back some nostalgia as this was my first computer that I owned personally, and I used it throughout all of high school. I have fond memories of playing games like Team Fortress 2, Crossfire, and Minecraft. I even hosted a Minecraft server on this thing a couple of times. Although this laptop was no powerhouse and definitely struggled with intensive tasks like gaming, it got the job done and I still enjoyed my time with it. Now let's briefly go over the specs. This laptop rocks an AMD Turion 2 M520. This is a dual-core processor that is loud and heats up like crazy when pushing its limits. Trust me, I used this for gaming at one point and it overheated a couple times. Also, the cooler of the CPU didn't really help it much. It comes with 4 gigs of RAM, which is running at DDR2 at 800 MHz. It originally comes with a 320 GB hard drive, a CD drive, and a Wi-Fi module that supports the Wi-Fi 4 standard. As for the graphics, this laptop uses the ATI Radeon 4200. At the time, running graphically intensive games with this GPU was not great, but it got the job done. Now for the peripherals. It comes with a VGA port for video, an Ethernet port with the max speed of 100 megabits per second, an eSATA port funny enough, mic and headphone jack, an SD card reader, 2 USB 2.0 ports, a landline port, a barrel jack for charging, and a Kensington lock. The original operating system that was on this laptop was Windows 7. The seller was able to install Windows 10 on here and he forgot to factory reset it. That's actually fine because I'm going to completely wipe the drive, but first let's do a little modification. Alright, so we're going to start modifying this thing right here. Just a quick note, the battery is actually dead, so I'm actually going to remove that first. See if I can. There we go. So yeah, this is a dead Toshiba laptop battery. Alright. In the middle we have the RAM compartment, but we're not going to be upgrading the RAM. I think 4 gigs is enough. What we do is take out the CD drive, which is right here, and I think it's connected probably here, and then we'll also replace the hard drive with an SSD. Alright, let's see if we can.
This is a Chucky Beat production. This is a Chucky Beat production.
Now this part isn't super necessary, but I want to see if this hard drive bay that I have lying around can work in this laptop configuration. Since this Toshiba laptop has an eSATA port, it should connect up with the hard drive bay. Before we start, we will be creating our flash drive. I will be installing Arch Linux on this laptop and will be running it headless. I will remote into it using SSH and do my setup from there after the initial steps. Alright, let me just plug this drive in. Alright. Moment of truth. Alright. Okay, so what I did was I reinstalled Arch Linux onto that flash drive and now it seems to be working fine. Alright, so alright, so I was able to log in, and what I'm going to do is install SSH, so that's what I'm going to do, and then from there, once I install SSH, I'm going to be going onto my PC and remoting in from there. Now before I actually start remoting into the newly created server, I wanted to highlight a couple of issues. One of which being that the hard drive bay was not being read by the eSATA port. For this, I decided to use a USB cable to connect the bay to one of the laptop's USB port. It will be limited to USB 2 speed, so we'll see how that goes. Another issue is that the hard drive caddy doesn't seem to work as well. I decided to take out the hard drive from that caddy and install it into a SATA to USB enclosure, which I plugged into the other USB port. Now both drives are being recognized by the laptop. Alright, now that we are remoted into our new server, what are we going to do right now is install neofetch and get some information from there. So let's just do a sudo pacman -s neofetch. Put your password in. And then accept the conditions. Alright, it's installed. Now if we type in neofetch, as we can see, we can get a bunch of information. We have our model number from the host. We can see that we're on kernel 6.6.10. We see that the CPU is showing up as the AMD Turin 2, and then our GPU, the Radeon HD 4225. We also see the RAM, and right now the amount of RAM that's being used is only 168 megabytes, so fairly low usage right now, which is pretty good. And if you were to type in, let's actually install btop. Hit yes, and then if you type btop, you can see that we are only using about 1% of our CPU because nothing's really running at the moment. And yeah, so far everything seems to be bare bones. what we'll do is we'll make it to where we're going to make it to where we have access to our drives, and so we can use it as a NAS. Also, one more thing I need to show is that the disks are now being seen by the laptop. So let's do a sudo fdisk -l. I think I spelled fdisk wrong. Fdisk. Oh, okay. Now it should work. All right. And you can see here is a list of drives. This is my main drive right here, the one that Arch Linux is loaded onto. This is the 320 gigabyte laptop drive, and then these are the two drives that's located in the hard drive bay. What I did now is create partitions for using the fdisk command for each of the spare hard drives. Once each drive has a partition, I then create the btrfs file system for each partition on all three drives. Now I can mount each of the partitions to a directory, which will be located in the mnt directory. For the sake of this video, I will be calling the directories disk1, disk2, and disk3. Lastly, I will make sure to have these drives be auto-mounted on startup, just in case the server needs to be reset for any reason. I'll have to go to the fs tab file and make the changes there. The setup is pretty much complete for creating our NAS. Now we can create an SMB or NFS share, but for the sake of this video, we'll just stick with the SFTP protocol as it works just fine for file transfer. What we will do is test the speeds of our drives over the network and over the USB 2 interfaces. So as we can see on our left, we have our FileZilla client, and what I'm doing right now is transferring a movie file from my PC over to the NAS. And as we can see, we are transferring over 10 to 11 megabits per second. This is pretty slow for a transfer, but I think that may be the limitation of the USB ports. As we see on the right, our BTOP is showing about a 60% CPU usage, which is not the best, but as long as we aren't reaching 100% utilization for one transfer, we should be good. We can also test the speed of the SSD and see how fast of a transfer that we can get. And as we can see, we are getting about the same amount of speeds, and we're getting about the same amount of CPU utilization. So to answer our question, is it possible to repurpose our old laptop and utilize it as a NAS? The answer is yes, it is possible, but it may not be for everyone. Taking your old laptop out from storage and reusing it for server purposes will cost you little to no amount. All you really need is one good external drive and you're ready to set up. We did encounter some issues along the way. My hard drive caddy refused to work and I'm not quite sure why. It is about the same size as the CD drive and it fits in well, but it still didn't recognize the drive. Also, the transfer speeds over the network weren't all that great either due to the limitation of the 100 megabits per second Ethernet port. Now, a way to get around this would be to use a gigabit USB to Ethernet adapter. It may increase the transfer speeds, but probably not by much. Other than that, one other improvement I would recommend is buying a spare laptop battery if your current one is dead. This would be great to have installed just in case of a power outage. It can be used as backup power for a couple of hours. Overall, this was a good project to tinker with. For people that want to get into networking or just want to have a super cost-effective way to store important files and media, this may be a good option. You just have to temper your expectations, and depending on what laptop you have, you may have a better experience than what I had. Anyways, that's all I have for today, and I appreciate the time you took to watch this video. This is my first actual attempt to make a heavier production video, so any feedback is much appreciated. Thanks again, and have a good day.